Other than simple service tasks, removing the rear wheel is probably going to be the most common job you have to do on your motorbike. If you ever want to do any work on the rear of the bike, the rear wheel's probably going to have to come off. Also, when I get new tyres on it, I've found it's quite a lot cheaper if I can take the wheels off and take them directly to the shop rather than them charging me for half an hour of mechanic time just to take the wheels off. So you'll probably find yourself doing it quite a lot. It's relatively simple to do, but you do need just a couple of tools which are slightly unique and you might not have to hand. Firstly, you need the ability to get the rear wheel off the ground. I'm going to use this ABBA stand today. You're going to need a 46mm socket. So unless you regularly work on lorries or trucks and things like that, that's not really a standard size in a socket set. And you're going to need a torque wrench capable of going up to 146 Newton meters. You may well already have one of these if you take your car wheels on and off. Some jobs you can get away with estimating the torque. For something as important as the rear wheel, I definitely wouldn't. There's only one nut holding this wheel on, so with over 100 horsepower going through that, you probably don't want to be taking any chances with that one. I generally do the initial loosen while the wheel's on the ground. Once it's in the air, you'll find it's going to rotate, so you're either going to need to try and hold the rear brake, or, well, you're essentially going to have to need to hold the rear brake. So unless there's two of you, that can be a little bit tricky. So I'd try and give it a bit of a loosen on the ground. So before you loosen the nut, there's just this little sort of wire clip. Just take that off with a set of pliers. I don't really know what it's for, it's just to stop it coming loose, I think, but I don't know how much good it does. Although this isn't insanely tight, I usually find after it's been ridden for a bit, or if you haven't taken this off in a few years, it can be pretty stiff to undo. So to try to use just a standard 1/2 inch ratchet like this, especially as this one's got a 3/4 inch drive on it, I find that quite tricky. So because I'd have to use this adapter, so then all of a sudden you've got quite a long distance between the end of the nut and the pivot. So if you're trying to do it like this here, it's going to be pretty stiff. You might have a bit more luck with that, but to save that hassle, I tend to just use a 3/4 inch breaker bar. So I bring out the beast and undo it with this, or at least loosen it with that, and then tightening up is usually okay to use the adapter because it's not too tight, as I said. It's not an overly deep nut, it's probably 8 to 10 mil or something like that, so make sure you really hold it on tight, otherwise you might round it off. So I don't know if you could tell, but that was pretty tight. Okay, now it's loosened, I'm just going to put it up on the stand to get the rear wheel off the ground. So now you can just proceed to undo the nut fully and just pull the wheel off. Few bits here that can fall off, so make sure you note the order that they come off in. So there you go, the wheel's now off, ready for you to do whatever you want to do on the back of the bike, or take the wheel to your local tyre shop. So inside the wheel you've just got this sort of conical washer type thing. You've got a flat washer, and then you've got this other sort of slightly less conical washer, and then the nut goes on top of that. So when it comes to putting it back on, you can see that the hub has just got a few see, it's got these pins that just locate the wheel, so make sure that those get seat back in there, put it back on, put the washers back in on the same order, just do it finger tight, and then we'll torque it up. So it's usually okay to torque it up while it's up on the stand, but if you're having trouble with the wheel rotating, just put it back down to the ground. Just give that an initial tighten up. Once you've tightened up the nut just a little bit, set your torque wrench to 146 Newton meters, or whatever your manual says if you've got a different model to mine. I think the Tiger is a bit less, but most of the other Triumphs are 146. So just to show you how I sometimes do it, I'm going to torque it up while the wheel is off the ground, just by standing on the rear brake. As you might be able to tell, that's quite awkward to do it like that. Clearly possible, but otherwise you just let it down. So the other way is just to let it down and do it while it's on the ground. Then just get your little clip. One just final thing to note, when you're undoing this rear nut, it's going to try and pull the bike backwards, obviously. If you pull a bike backwards while it's on a side stand, it's a lot safer than pulling it forwards, because that's pulling it into the open position, if that makes sense. Whereas if you roll this forwards while it's on a side stand, it could fall over, because that could fold up the stand. So if you've got an amber stand like this, if you leave it in position, then if the side stand does fold up, that will still hold it up. Alternatively, get someone to hold the handlebars while you're tightening it, or stand on the rear brake, and just be careful. So that's just something to be aware of, so you don't drop your bike. But otherwise, that's all there is to it. So fill your boots.